Hi guys, today I'm going to talk to you about my Demi Lovato finished painting. This video is going to be short and sweet. It's going to talk about my references at the beginning, some of the inspiration, and then go into the time-lapse footage. I have a bunch of different clips, and I think this video has been a long time coming because I have so many clips all over my hard drive and everywhere, and I was too lazy just to compile them and organize them all together. And I finally have done that, and I want to share them with you in one full-length video. So yeah, if you want to skip the inspiration and reference photos, I'll put a link right now where you can skip the intro. But if you want to, then keep watching and I'll explain some of my inspiration. Okay, so how I'm gonna do this. Are you kidding me? Okay, so I'm just gonna pop some images up right here on my right of some of the inspiration photos that I chose. Here are some of birds that I chose of her, like flying, of her tattoo flying off of her body. And this was the composition photo that I created for my reference. Obviously very rough, but I just wanted to do something that was a rough idea of where the placement would be, and then I go onto the actual board and make sure that everything is in its proper spot. So setting this up, gridding it out, sketching it, and then going into the coloring. I don't really care about the coloring on here. I like to mess with it whenever it's on the board. So these are just the original reference photos. And again, I wanted to capture that feeling of emotion, that feeling of emptiness, of, you know, shedding facades of who we think that we are, or shedding off fake masks of who we present ourselves to be. So that was kind of the whole concept behind the painting. So those were some of my inspiration photos, and once I kind of had that all together, I just jumped right into the sketching process and into the initial stage for my painting. Now I'm going to get into the time lapse and how I created this piece, so I hope that you enjoy it. And I'm going to do a little bit of voiceover just to explain some things, but here's the time lapse. So this is the beginning stage of the painting. I'm adding some purples and grays, and I'm just going to pause really quick, and if you look at the blue pencil sketch, that's the original that I ended up covering up. My original idea was having her heads facing two opposite directions, but then I went with the mask idea. I thought that it would be a little bit more symbolic and a more solid idea to go with. So this is me just adding kind of like an underpainting. Like I said before, this painting was completely sporadic and kind of an experiment. I wasn't really sure if people were going to like it or catch on to it because it was such a touchy subject, but it really ended up being one of my most successful pieces that I've shared on Instagram. If you're seeing this video for the first time or you haven't seen this piece yet, you don't follow me on Instagram, I'll put all my links to my social media accounts in the description of this video. So here's me just adding some black to the background and some grays. And then my intention was for the side of the face to really come forward and then the skull area to be in the shadow but still be lit up so that you could tell. I added some ultramarine blue to the back right area of the painting as well. And then I'm just adding some warmer grays with some cadmium yellow to the left side. Starting to highlight the neck, making the eyeball appear to be black and blue, adding tears coming down her eye, and then just splotching in some different colors. The hand was the part of the piece that I worked with the most, the hand, and, you know, going into her tattoo on her forearm. It was a part of the piece that I really wanted to focus on just because hands are so complex. But once you do more hands, I'm doing a hand work right now, and they get easier once you kind of get the idea of the anatomy and how from the fingertips to the knuckles to the actual hand, and then fading back into the wrist and the arm. You kind of get an idea of how it all comes together. But yeah, I was adding the lighter shades, and then I would go back in with the shadows an outline and make like a hard edge on the, like near where the palm is. Nails though are probably the hardest thing for me to paint, just because you kind of have this preconceived idea of them in your head, and then your brain like tries to get you to paint them like that, when in reality they don't look like that, if that makes sense at all. But here I'm just adding her tattoo in, and I didn't do it exact just because I tried to make it my own in having, you know, real birds come out of her tattoo and making it, you know, come alive. And then there was me adding the skeleton finger. And one of my favorite parts would be the finger, just because the skeleton, I didn't have an exact reference photo for that, so I kind of made it up, which I'm sure you could probably tell, but I liked it because that side of like the dead area was sporadic, along with like the cracking of her, like the shell of her face on the right. And the reason that I really went with that is, you know, the idea of breaking. I really like to break apart the figure. Even in, you know, my pieces that I'm doing right now, I notice similarities, and it actually looks like kind of like mountaintops on her forehead area, but I didn't like how it looked like it was like a receding hairline. I hated that, so I didn't even notice it at this stage until after I watched the time-lapse video, and I said, next session I completely cover it up, just because it looked odd. And it wasn't really needed. Like, you can't really see her hair. I just put little indentations that kind of go in with the sky, but that wasn't something that really needed to be brought out, so I make little indentations. But this part was so fun, making the head, or making like her skin fade into like a really rocky texture. I thought that that was a really cool part, and I loved doing that. But my favorite part would be that crack, just because I made it up and wanted it to look as realistic as possible. Here's me just shading parts of the neck, and then on the left side adding some more shading. Her neck started to look a little bit bulky here, and I remember I went over it again and fixed it where I have that little crease. And then me adding the bird coming out of her hand. And then here is a little bit of trees and leaves and things. I didn't use a reference photo for this. It's more impressionistic and abstract. I just kind of wanted to give the impression of trees, but not having to be like super strict or super detailed, just because I was really detailed in the faces and, you know, how they cracked and things like that. And like I said, here's the crack of the mask part. This is my favorite color that I added to the canvas, or to the board, sorry. It's an not ultramarine, like a turquoise shade, but ever since I used it in this piece, I picked it up at Michael's, and it's a Winsor & Newton turquoise shade. I'll have to put it in the description, but I've used it in every single piece that I've done. I used it to kind of unify the whole piece by putting little highlights on her face and on the hand. Just all throughout has these little indentations of the turquoise. I don't know why I put this clip after. It's kind of a mistake, but this is me just highlighting the bust area of her neck. So going over with a light ultramarine blue. This is a completely different blue than the turquoise, but as you can see up close, like in the fingers, there's blue, and I'm just adding some small highlights to her face. This is kind of like a cinematic shot of the entire piece, but you can clearly see how the blue is throughout. Some up close shots. This is me fixing the neck and putting highlights on the areas closest to the viewer to create that illusion. And then over top of her tattoo. It was a really fun part of it. I liked focusing in on the details of her tattoos, which are really beautiful, and bringing them to life. And then adding some highlights on the nose. Here's up close of the bird flying out of, you know, the shadow of her tattoo. I did this in my Mac Miller painting too. If you haven't seen that video, definitely check it out. But I kind of explained the same process in that one. These small areas. Wait, maybe not. Never mind, I didn't add this clip. But just refining and adding some shadows of blue. And this is my favorite clip. This is the last one, but this is the like ASMR type clip of me adding varnish. And I want to do a complete video of me adding varnish because this is really satisfying. But basically what this does is it seals and protects the entire painting and makes it permanent. So once you put this down, you're pretty much done. So it's refreshing to put a varnish on and have it look shiny, if you like the shiny look, which I do, because the oil paint kind of naturally dries matte, and this really brings out the vibrancy and true colors. So I just want to thank you guys for watching. That is the complete time lapse from start to finish and some of my inspiration behind it, while not giving too much away, because it is for your eyes to interpret and to create any emotion that you feel. But this is the final piece. I'm really, really happy. It's probably my favorite work from works that I've done in 2018. And yeah, I hope that you enjoyed it. If you want to see more videos like this, or if you want to just see purely time-lapse videos with no talking, please comment or let me know, because it'd be awesome to get, you know, feedback from what you guys like so that I can make videos that will be interesting. So thank you guys so much for watching, and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the thumbs up and let me know what you think.